You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Zeona McIntyre, aka Z Money. Z, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. So at the time of this recording, it is our book launch final day. So we are launching our book, 30 Day Stay, through Bigger Pockets. It has been pre-selling like a champ. And so it's just really fun. We've been doing lots and lots of promo, podcasts. We're going to have a party, which actually that's a fun thing I can tell everybody. If you guys want to come, don't feel like you can't fly out here. You can come and meet us. I'm still working on getting Craig to come out, so that is not a given. But a lot of fun people are going to be at this party hosted by Bigger Pockets. You can find out more on the Bigger Pockets meetup group. So go check that out. Or you can DM me on Instagram and I will send you the link. But it's going to be a capacity of 300 people for a book launch party. And you should be one of those people. So
when is the party? When is it?
It is December 13th, baby.
Yeah, well, if you are in Denver or coming to Denver December 13th, definitely check it out. That's going to be super exciting. And congrats on all your success on your book launch. I feel like I've been hearing medium-term stay, like all around everywhere. So you guys are making an impact in this little world that we live in.
We're trying.
Yeah. Speaking of impacts, we've got a great guest today. His name is Antonio Cucciniello, which is really fun to say in Italian. And we've got a really good question that I want to leave with you guys all as well. We also ask Antonio this at the end of the show, and you can hear his answer if you listen all the way to the end. But why do you think all Italian names, and maybe even all Italian words, end in a vowel? If you've got a good answer for that, please DM me on Instagram at the Fi Guy. I need answers to this. I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep until I know. Z, what do you say?
Okay.
Should we bring him on the show?
Let's do it.
Antonio Cucciniello, welcome back to the show, I should say, because we totally screwed up your first recording like a few months ago. And so we have the pleasure to talk to you again. I can't wait to hear all about your story for a second time. You ready? It's got to be better than the first.
I don't even remember what I said the first time, so it's got to be better than the first.
Me neither.
It's got it. No one remembers. Literally no one in the
you
world
were paying
remembers.
attention then.
Yeah. All right, Antonio. Well, then why don't we just kick it off from the beginning? When did you first hear about financial independence? Give us that time and day and all that good stuff.
It was after the first day at my first full-time job as a software engineer. I was thinking that I had to live my life as a software engineer and show up 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. Like that was what life was because that's what my parents told me. And then I'm at my first job, day one. I go home. I'm like, wow, I can't do this for forever. And my friend's like, oh, have you heard of entrepreneurship? And I start looking it up and I'm like, whoa, there's all these things like real estate investing and this and that. And I was like, oh, I could make money and not be at a place. And that was it for me. It was just like day one.
Plus, you're too cute to be a software engineer, you know? Just doesn't make sense. If you guys are watching this, you need to go watch this on YouTube. Like, just stop what you're doing and go look at this man. He's a little beefcake.
Yeah, your hair, dude, is just absolutely...
No, I'm a pasta cake. I'm a pasta cake.
Yeah. Okay, great. Pasta cake. It's because he's Italian. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, your hair is flowing. So yeah, you're at this software job Where is it? Tell us where we're at. You got Facebook, you got Instagram?
We're in Princeton, New Jersey, right near where I went to college. Yeah, it was not the nice part of Princeton. Princeton's not bad, but it wasn't a nice part of Princeton. It was right next to the train station. I was at a job where it was mostly older people, people who have been there for 30, 40, 50 years. A few weeks in, actually, my idea of not wanting to do this got solidified when I came into the office one day and everyone's doors were closed, and I was really weirded out because we had a open door policy in the office, and it turns out that there were layoffs that day, and I walked by other people's offices, and they had there were literally 40, 50-year-old men crying because they got laid off from their job. They had no money. They spent all their savings on their daughter's tuition for college. And I'm like, whoa, I spent my entire life going to school to do this thing. And 40 years from now, I'm going to end up like that. No offense to that guy or any of the guys that got laid off that day, but that's not the position that I saw myself being in, right? I saw myself being rich and well off and not having to worry about money every day. So I was scared seeing that as my future.
There's a cute saying out there, and it's called a job. You know what a job stands for? Antonio, I know you know.
Oh my God.
A job? What does a job stand for?
It stands for just over broke. Because if you lose the job, you become broke. And people always say, real estate investing is so risky. You're doing this entrepreneurial venture is so risky, but really there's nothing more risky than having a job, because your future is only in the companies. Is if the company starts to suck, you're going to get laid off. If you don't do a good job, you're going to get laid off. So your boss has so much power over your life and your family's life that it just no one should be in that position. So what do you do next, Antonio? You see this guy crying. You don't want to be like him. You kind of hear about entrepreneurship. What's your next move?
I read every goddamn book about real estate investing I could get my hands on. And I watch every Grant Cardone, Gary Vee, you name it, YouTube video, Robert Kiyosaki, because I was obsessed. If you ask my parents at the time, I'd come home and all that would be on from morning to night is some form of entrepreneur type YouTube channel and walking around reading a book. I didn't leave any space for any other thought. Because I had no one around me that was believing in this ideology. So I had to kind of build this environment of people that believed in the thing without me being there, or without them being there.
Did that feel lonely at all for you? For going against what your parents were saying, not having anybody around you kind of doing the same thing and just reading books yourself? Were you kind of
unbelievably lonely? I actually made a YouTube video maybe now 4.5 years ago about how I lived in New York City and I felt like the most alone person in the world because no one my age wanted to do the things that I wanted to do. And it felt like that all they wanted to do was go out and party. Now that was fun and all, but every time I'd go out and party, I'd be thinking about oh man, I'm spending money on this drink that I could be saving towards my first rental property, or I am not hustling right now and I'm not doing this other thing that could get me, 0.0001% closer to my goal.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm curious how the mindset shift happened for you, because if you have nobody around you doing it, I feel like it's so much harder to believe just the talking heads on the internet, especially these people that are older. Grant Cardone is no spring chicken. So just how did that happen for you, where you said I don't care, everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I'm still going to do this?
So I actually started a few masterminds there's a small group of my friends. And when I say small group, I say less than 5% of them probably were interested in some form of business hustle, something along those lines. So it wasn't even about real estate. It was just about, I want to do something other than a job. Okay. And I was like, yes, I also want to do something other than a job. Let's meet on a weekly basis and talk about how we want to do something else other than a job. So I had those people in my life that were closer to me because we had similar ambitions. Turning back now, a lot of them have not kept up with their ambitions, unfortunately. And like I basically brainwashed myself with all of these other people online. Like they felt like that they were real life to me.
Nice.
I love that, man. I love creating a mastermind group. If you are feeling lonely or you're new to this journey and you don't know where to go, like try to find one or two people around you just to help you out there. My question is, what time frame are we in here? Like, when were you in your job? When did you decide to start this mastermind group? Just so we get an idea of when this was all happening.
Yeah, I think I started the first mastermind group 3 months after my first job started. So I was 22. I started working. I think I had 2 weeks off after college, and then I just went straight into work. So we're thinking like September. Like if I went for a 50 year at college, that's when it would have started.
Okay. Okay. So, and what year? What year is that? Like 2000?
2015. Yeah, 2015.
Okay. Okay, so it's like the fall of 2015, and this is kind of when you're getting started with everything. You're learning about financial independence. You're getting going, and so you got this accountability group. I suspect they're keeping you accountable. Are you jumping right into real estate, or do you have some other ventures before you land on real estate?
Yeah, I was at this crossroads about like 9 months later, where I had some savings, and I had been working on an Amazon FBA business, and I really wanted to leave my job. And so with the some savings, I had actually reached out to my landlord at the time, and I was like, hey, are you interested in selling your property? Because I heard that was the right thing to do. And then my landlord told me that like he doesn't make any money on it himself. He was like, I'm barely breaking even with the rents, that you guys have. So I took that as a bad sign. So that kind of discouraged me. I was already scared to do anything, and that like discouraged me to go forward. So I went for all in on the Amazon FBA thing. And I had a partner for that. And so we both quit our jobs in June of 2016, with a strong 11 months of experience. And it didn't end up well.
What is FBA?
FBA, fulfillment by Amazon.
Okay, and so that's it.
So
Tell
you
us a little bit about
basically
that
give
business. What do you
Amazon
do?
your stuff, and they
Yep.
fulfill it to ship it out, like with Prime shipping and stuff. So I was selling bamboo cutting boards.
So random. Okay, so I'm assuming you like went through all your savings and now you're back at square zero. So what do you do now you just go back and get a job?
Uh, Funny. Yeah, I went through all of my savings in the first 3 months of being outside of a job. One, because we ran our business into the ground. We spent too much money. We didn't have any cash flow. So we lost like $22,000 about. And at that point in time, that was more money than I had ever seen in my life. So that was a lot. And so then I basically picked up odd jobs. I started working at a pizza delivery place. I did Uber driving. I went to work with my dad, who's a tile installer. And so with those three things, I basically just paid my student loans. I paid my phone bill, and I moved back into my parents' house in the basement. So, I had nothing. And at the same time, my girlfriend left me. So like, I was really in the dumps at that point. I had no money to go out to eat with my friends. Like, I can't do anything. I feel like a failure in life. And so basically I said, all right, real estate, I can't do now because I don't have money. So my game plan was just go all in and trying to get a new job and learn a new skill that will make me more money. This way I can go back to saving and then going back to the real estate thing. So I was still reading throughout this entire time, but it took me 14 months from the day I left my job till I got another job. So I basically was doing those odd jobs for the next 11 months or so just to stay afloat, applying for jobs.
All right, so fast forward us to like your transition point. Like, what was the tipping point that got you into your first property?
Yeah. So fast forward, it's now like July 2019. I have been working again for like 2.5 years. And so I feel I'm making some money. I'm making pretty good money for my age. I was spending a lot of it because I was in New York City, single, having a good life. But I knew I wanted to do this real estate thing. So the biggest point was, this is about a year of me living in the city, and like my landlord wanted to renew my lease. So he sends me an email in July, and he was like, yeah, we're going to raise your rent 15%. Let us know if you want to sign. And that moment where I got the email, I just never been so frustrated and never felt like I got pushed around by someone that much. Because I'm sitting here like, I don't throw parties. I never complain about anything. I never need to fix anything up. 15% is an outrageous increase for someone who hasn't done anything wrong and paid on time. So yeah. that moment, I was like, I need to figure out how to be on the owner side of things, not on the renter side of things. And so I pulled all the books out of my closet, and I was like, time to get serious. I'm going to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, and 15% in New York City is probably no joke either. 15% to
it was to $250. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nuts, especially kind of when you're still on that entry level, maybe secondary level type job. And so you read these books, right? You're breaking out, you're rubbing the dust off the books you maybe read a few years ago. And are you in New York City house hacking, or what's your move?
That was my initial first thought. So that was part of the problem with me being stuck, is I'm sitting here thinking like, all right, I have to buy something nearby, right? That's what people do. It's real estate. So I started looking in New York, and I was living in Lower East Side of Manhattan, and I found one co-op that was a 1-bedroom that was in like terrible shape for $550. So I call up the bank, and they were like, yeah, you can get pre-approved up to $900. I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot of money. I didn't know I could do that. So I got pre-approved, but like I started running the numbers on the property, and I was like, I might be really inexperienced, but this doesn't make any sense. Like if I got a mortgage, I would not make any money at all. And so then I kept looking, and I was like, none of these make sense. How does anyone make money here? So then I kept looking a little farther out of New York. I looked at like Newark and I think it's Harrison. Harrison's like a newer town near Newark. And so I just looked on the train lines. I was like, all right, let's go further out. Where can I live that can still take me into New York and I could house hack? And even then, the properties were like $300,000-$400,000 and would only really rent for like $2,000. And every time I did the math, it seemed like that they wouldn't make any sense, right? I'd have to finance a large portion of it. I only had $30K in savings. So what I did instead was I just said, all right, at that point I had almost given up. I was like, I got to find a place to invest. I started looking all across the country, and I got overwhelmed. So then I started taking out like all the cities I had in my head, and I started putting them on paper, and I started listing out, all right, what's the crime rate of these cities? What's the population growth of these cities? Because I'm an engineer, I'm a math person, so I like numbers. So I said, instead of just thinking about this in my head, let me use numbers to make my decision. And it turned out that Ewing, New Jersey, where I went to college, had decent numbers behind it for an area that would cash flow. Not amazing in terms of appreciation, but an area that would cash flow, that was close enough that I could at least take a train and a bike to the train station, take a 2-hour train to get to, if I needed to make me feel comfortable to start. And so that's what I did. I chose that, and then I kept going there until I found a property that I liked.
Wow, I am really impressed, because I think like so many people get stuck in this like analysis paralysis thing. They get overwhelmed. They maybe look at way too many cities. I see that a lot, where people are looking at like 9 different cities at once. So I'm amazed that you were able to come back from that and then settle into a place that you actually knew, because I feel like that is probably a great place to start. It's like you had, just a little familiarity with the areas, what were the good streets, what, who was living there, what's attracting people. So yeah, I'm excited. That sounds like a great first stop.
Yeah, it was, because like you said, I had some experience to rely on, even though I wasn't there at that moment. I knew, okay, this part of town is a little bit worse than this part of town, and I can look at that side of town and not be afraid of something bad happening there.
So
Right.
so we're in July 2019. Is this when you're doing your first deal?
So that's when I first started like going to properties and making offers.
Mhm.
I went probably every other weekend for the next 2 to 3 months, where I went to go look at properties in Ewing. That was my entire Saturday and Sunday, and I would take the train back in. And so I made offers on 9 out of like 200 that I analyzed. I got 2 accepted.
Wow.
One fell out of contract, and then I eventually got the triplex that I got first.
Great.
See.
So we're going to pause you here. Yeah.
You know what time it
Sounds
is?
like
It's
this is
the
his
for
real
real
deal.
deal. Super cool.
Oh my God.
Super on
Antonio's
point.
like,
We are
what the
with
hell's
it.
happening?
He's like, yeah, like, am I about?
Yeah.
So, Antonio, this is your first deal, whether intentional or not intentional. Sounds like this one was very, very intentional for you. So,
Yeah.
run us through this first house hack, is what it sounds like, in Ewing, New Jersey. Tell us what you bought it for, what your strategy was, what you ended up doing, and how it turned out.
Yeah, so the initial strategy was the house hack, but I was able to switch out of it later on. So started off, it's a $195,000 triplex. It was on the market for $185,000. I had to offer with an escalator up to $195,000 to beat everyone out. But I knew that based off of my numbers that it still worked at $195,000. So I made sure of that ahead of time. Triplex, it has 2 2-bed 1-baths and 1 1-bed 1-bath. And its current rents were at $2,600 when I bought the property. Today, I think we're at 33 something. So we're trying to increase it.
So it looks like you're like when you bought that property, you're way over the 1% rule. And so that's possible in New Jersey. I always thought New Jersey was this really expensive market.
Yeah, well, it's that's what I get all the time. It's like, no way we can do that in New Jersey. I'm like, you can, you just have to look in certain markets, right? This is not near New York City. You have to look far away from New York City. Anywhere within an hour of New York City is going to be tough because everyone wants to be close to New York City. So the appreciation just outrose the rent growth, which kills all the cash flow in those markets.
Totally. So you're in this college town of Ewing, New Jersey, is what it sounds like. And so you bought it for $195,000. Yeah, you got $2,600 for rent. And so when you bought it, was it already leased out, or did you have to lease it out at $2,600?
Yeah, it was already leased out at $2,600. So as I was hinting at, so I was going in with a 10% down. I think it was technically a 10% down FHA to start. And I am telling my brother and my dad about all the hard work about me looking at all these deals. And I'm like, yeah, I finally got one. And this is how much it's going to make me. And they were so skeptical about everything leading up until this moment. And as soon as I'm like 10 days away from closing, they're like, we want in on this deal. And I was like, okay. Well, because I was living in New York City and I was going to have to move to Ewing and make my commute 2.5 hours every single day. So I was like, yeah, I'll take your $15K to turn this from, a house hack into just a regular rental property loan. So they both put in $15K, and our agreement was that I basically manage the asset and they are offhand. My dad is a contractor, so like, he gives advice on that stuff. And my brother is a CPA, so he gives advice on, and he does the taxes for the property.
How did you structure this whole thing with your family? Did you have like an operating agreement with all this spelled out, or was it kind of just like a back the napkin handshake, love you kind of thing?
It started off like that. And then as we wanted to do things together, we had to make things more and more legal, right? So we created an LLP together. For some reason, my brother thought an LLP was the better thing to do than an LLC. I still don't know the difference why. And then we created an operating agreement. And we had originally bought it still under my name. So even though it was technically owned by all of us, it was still under my name. And so then my plan was, all right, we're going to fix things up and then we're going to refinance it and put it under the LLP. And we did that. in 2021 to capitalize on obviously the appreciation growth as well.
Got it.
So-
Okay. And so how has it been working with your family? Has there been any fights, any weird Thanksgiving dinner talks? Because you hear these horror stories all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about initially, especially because I come from a hard-headed Italian family. My brother is probably the more pain in the ass, I'd say, out of the two. My dad is, at this point, he's all in on me. He's like, I trust you to make the right decision. You can like run with it. My brother is very, very, very conservative when it comes to financials. So for him, any dollar spent, he's like, why are we spending $1 on this? Why are we spending $1 on that? But I'd have to say that comparatively to, it's not really a nightmare. It's more of just like, I expect that that's how my brother's going to react. So I will come with, reasons why on, hey, this is why we're spending this money to, fix up this unit. So this way we can get more rental income and we'll get it back over the next 3 years.
So what was your mortgage on this property, and like what kind of cash flow were you seeing?
My initial mortgage was, I want to say, well, it was a 4.85%. So I guess we can use a calculator for this. I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I think it was 700 and something. I put 25% down.
Okay.
So that's pretty good
Yeah.
if you're got it rented for 2,600.
Yeah, I think with PITI total was like 1,200. And then I always budget like 20% for vacancy repairs and CapEx, and then management. I had actually asked my real estate agent to manage it because there weren't no other really good property managers in the area that I found. And he was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And he was only charging me 6% to start. Now that's now increased, but I was able to keep management low too. So for the beginning, which was nice.
So it sounds like you're cash flowing about $1,000 or so a month on this property, and you kind of lucked out because you didn't have to live there, and you kept your 30 grand, right? You didn't actually put any of your own dollars into this
Nope.
first one.
No, I put my own 30 grand into it as well.
Oh, you did. Okay, so you put your
Yeah,
own
so
30
I
grand.
put 30, my brother put 15, my dad put 15. So the down payment was about 58.5. So we had like 1,500 left over total.
Okay, awesome. And so what did you do once you purchased this property? It sounded like there was tenants in there. They were paying you $2,600 a month. Did you kick them out, raise the rents? Did you just raise the rents?
No, we still have one of the tenants in there, and I actually, as of like 2 weeks ago, I still had all three of those tenants. One has just moved to another one of my properties because they needed a different space. One just moved out because they were able to get some like Section 8 voucher. And then one is still in the property. So I kept it as was, and then I basically like to approach them every year and say, hey, we want to increase the rent and we want you to have a better place. What would you like done in the property? And so they'll come and tell us like, oh, we want this done. We want this done. And I'll look at it and I'll be like, all right, well, that's like a $25,000 thing. That's not worth it. But like this, they want. And if I do this, I can increase the rent, $50 to $100. And so I try to make it more like a negotiation, so they feel like the rent increase isn't something that is placed onto them. Instead, it's more of a choice. Like, hey, you got the rent increase, but you also got these new things with your place to live.
That is super smart. I
Dude,
like that.
that's a nugget, man. I've never heard of that before. And I think that's when your tenants also I have to imagine there's some psychology that goes into this as well, is like when your tenants have a say as to how the place is decorated or what renovation gets done, there's got to be a increase in occupancy, because they're probably not going to want to leave. Be like, okay, yeah, rent might increase $100 a month, but like I'm going to paint this wall the color I want it to be, or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And so not only do they feel like they have a choice, but they feel like they chose the higher rent. So it's not like a complaint of, oh, this is just another greedy landlord that increased the rent on me. It's like, oh, he's willing to work and he cares about like what my outcome is. And without the help of my property management company, I don't know if I would have gotten that far, but they were integral in that process.
Does anyone ever say, no, don't raise, I don't want anything done, just don't raise the rents?
I actually haven't had that scenario. Now, next week will be 3 years I've been investing. So I guess, we could say that it's not like, time tested over decades, but from the properties that I have and the time I've been doing it, most people seem to want things done to their property. And it could also be that because I'm investing in like, C-class areas, that I'm not at the top notch already, where people can't complain about their granite beautiful countertops already because they don't have those.
I see.
So what happened for you to go to the next property? It sounds like you weren't making that much cash flow if you're splitting it between 3 people. So how long did it take for you to get to the next place?
Oh man, I was hooked. I was like, this is like real life Monopoly. This is so much fun. So I didn't stop looking at properties. Like I just kept analyzing them. And at that point I picked up, you guys know who Matt Faircloth is, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matt Faircloth actually invests where I invested in Ewing. So he was at my meetup that I went to a couple times. And so this is like late in 2019, early 2020. I'm reading his book, and I didn't know that he was that guy. So I'm reading the book about raising private capital, and I was like, I don't know anyone who has money. This is not going to work out. And then I connected the two things about like my dad has a house that he has fully paid off, and he lives in a nice area. I was like, this is a gold mine. All I have to do is figure out a way to convince him to give me a loan on the property, and then I can use that to buy a property, and I could pay off the loan. So again, being like traditional Italian parents, my parents were not about taking debt on anything. They're like, we don't want debt. We want to be free, clear of debt. And I said, look, all I'm asking for is a loan for a year. You give me the loan. I will get the loan with you. My dad couldn't qualify for it because he's self-employed. So he needed my W-2 income to qualify for it. So I said, look, I'll co-sign on the loan with you. We'll take the money out. We'll buy 2 properties cash. We'll fix them up. And then I'll refinance those properties. You'll have your debt paid off. And we'll have extra cash and 2 cash flowing properties on top of it. And he was like, all right. My mom was against it still, but he was like, I'm not happy about it, but I'll do it because this one thing that we have is working. So I took it and I made offers on properties. This is March of 2020. And then the world shut down and I was scared more than anyone. And all my offers had gotten rejected because I was offering a little bit lower than what people wanted. And I get a few calls back like a week into, lockdown. And my agent's like, hey, they're willing to accept your offer. Do you want to take it? And I was sitting with this struggle in my head. I was like, do I take these deals when the world is falling apart? And like the only saying that I kept hearing in my head was like, when there's blood in the streets, you buy, and when everyone's buying, you don't buy. I forget the exact thing, but like that's what kept going in my head. I was like, all right, if I listen to all the advice that I've learned, it would be to buy right now because you're getting a discount on them. And what's the worst that happened? They cash flow, right? So I accepted both of the offers. I got them like 20, 30K below ask, which was great. Because had I waited like 4 more months, they would have went 20, 30K over ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 of them. One I got for 135, which last year I refinanced for at 210, and then another one I got for 141 that refinanced for 225. It was 220 or 225. I don't remember. But they were both duplexes that were fully rented and cash flowing.
Nice. Can you
And
go
so
into
then-
the numbers on those?
Yeah. So 135, that property was renting for 1,400. No, sorry, 1,500 total. But I had made it as a contingency in my offer that the rents had to be increased to 950 per unit, so it'd bring it up to 1,900 because the property had higher taxes and higher insurance, so it wouldn't have cash flowed even though it was a 1%er.
So did these guys have like month-to-month leases in place, or how did that work? Because I thought you couldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was month-to-month leases. They were friends with the landlord, so the landlord was like letting them stay in their house basically. And so part of the thing was also getting security deposits and getting them into a 6-month lease before I got the property. The only reason why I was able to do that was because of how like the landlord needed the money in order to get out of the house to move on.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you that really anything is negotiable when you're buying and selling real estate. And so people don't think like, oh, like that's not something that you can negotiate. No, literally, like anything's negotiable. I could like if me and Zeona were doing a deal, I could be like, Zeona, it is in the contract that you wear that exact shirt to our closing date, and she could have to do that. And it's stupid, but like literally anything could be in that contract.
Yeah, it
God,
really
Craig.
is. Like, I asked if it was possible to my real estate agent because it felt like it was impossible. It felt like I was doing something wrong. But I was like, I don't know. I want to buy this, but the rent's too low. Do you think they'll raise the rent for me so I don't have to do the work? And they did. So I was like, okay, cool. That's not bad. The other one was 141. I bought it for 141.5, duplex, studio up top, and 3-bed, 1-bath down low. That one rented for $21.75. And now that one, the person who was upstairs, we had inherited, and we had evicted, like literally a few months ago, and we finally just got. She is a hoarder, so we were able to get a rental assistance for her to cover half of the rent loss I had on that property. She didn't pay for over $10,000 worth of rent since COVID because of the laws in New Jersey. So that one, cash flow wise, the downstairs has been covering all the bills for the most part. And whenever the upstairs pays, that's my profit. But otherwise, it's, not that one. The cash flow isn't as amazing.
Yeah, those rental assistance programs are kind of. I've got one tenant that's on that now, and it's like you don't see rent for like 6 months, then all of a sudden you get like a $15,000 rent payment, right? And it's like, oh, okay, like not really how I want this thing to work.
Doing.
Yeah, exactly. I've always questioned what the government's doing, but that's a different subject. Anyway, so it's kind of like mid-COVID now, like let's say like May 2020. It sounds like you've now got 3 properties, all with your dad. And so what does your portfolio look like at this point? Like how much total cash flow do you have? Sounds like you've got some equity in it already, and you're not doing any rehab studies. It sounds like you're buying them pretty turnkey. Is that right?
I'm buying them with tenants in there, and I'm fixing them up with the tenants in there. So I'm not doing any major renovations. We're doing some stuff to the outside, a little bit cosmetic work on the inside. We actually even paid for tenants to be in hotels for some of them to do some of the work in like the bathrooms and stuff like that. Because I was trying to minimize vacancy up front. But yeah, this is now, I closed on the second one in June 2020, or the second duplex in that row. So I have 7 units at this point, and I think like with my numbers, I had my cash flow at somewhere after my 50% share, somewhere around $1,000, I think, somewhere around $1,000.
Okay.
But so yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I every year I've made a YouTube video about my exact numbers on the property, so you could always go back and refer to that if you wanted to, but I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, no worries. I think the point I was just trying to get at here is that in less than a year, right? Like a year prior to this point, like June of 2019, I guess, right? Like you were still like figuring shit out, right? Like a year is such a long time at this part of your journey. In that year, you kind of discovered real estate. You bought your first house with your parents. You bought your second and third house. You got $1,000 in cash flow. You've probably got close to 100 grand in equity just for you. And I think like that is just so like that's like the beauty of real estate, and that's why it's so powerful, is that you can like once you get going, it just starts going. And so like, you know, we've got a couple more years to cover here. So what happens kind of after these three?
So yeah, the appreciation was making the home prices go up, and because of that, a lot of properties that were deals are no longer being deals to me. They just weren't cash flowing. So then I was like, okay, I want to invest in other markets around the US. Like I always had that idea before, but I was too nervous to do so. I was like, so let me make a whole video series about what it's like to go to these markets. I'll first do the data analysis, and then I'll pick the markets, and then I'll go to them. So in April 2021, I had researched about 30 cities. From the 30 cities, I picked 8, and I drove from New Jersey to Texas with my Tesla, and I stopped at all of them. I made meetings with agents and investors along the way, and I looked at properties, and it really opened up my eyes that, like, I made an offer on a $22,000 property. And now, granted, it was in Gary, Indiana, but it was in a like not bad street in Gary, Indiana. And so I was like, my mind was blown that the possibility of buying properties for like that cheap coming from New York City was a shocker to me. So that time frame was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a good thing in the sense that I got exposure to new markets, and I made offers on properties, and I ended up putting in 3 offers. I got 2 of them accepted. I put more than 3 offers, but I had 3 under contract, and then 2 went through. And from the 2 that went through, I still have today is a duplex and a triplex. I got a duplex in Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas, for $56,000. And it refinanced at $170K after $40K worth of work, and it rents for $1,350.
Wow.
And I got a triplex in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, which is a suburb of Akron, that rents for $1,750 and a purchase price of $102,500. And the comps for that were like around 200 then. So this was now June 2021. That's what that puts us at.
Okay, so you're driving around the country. I mean, is it kind of like, and Zeona, you're kind of like this too, where you kind of have houses in different markets. Like, yeah, you're like, ooh, Gary, Indiana. Ooh, Cuyahoga Falls. Ooh, Little Rock. Right? Ziona's more like, ooh, Destin, or ooh, Union City, Oregon, or wherever the hell you're at. But like, what is it like to go to all these like places, and you got to find a new agent? You got to find like a good agent is so important, right? And like, you got to find a new team, like a contractor, like all this stuff. Like, does that get laborious or?
That was the problem. So I had 3 properties in 3 markets under contract that I had never invested in before. So I had never worked so much in my life trying to understand the streets in the area, right? I had been there for a day and to like keep cross-referencing what happens in Memphis and Little Rock and Akron all at the same time were really difficult. Finding contractors to fix everything up and getting the bids and being like, all right, which bid was this even for at this point? I totally forgot. Yeah, the communication with the agents, the property managers, also the home buying process in each state is different. So like some have option periods, some use lawyers, some don't. Like some you get the inspection done earlier, some you get it done later. Like it was all very confusing and trying to keep it all up. So I shot myself in the foot in that sense. I think I slowed myself down because of that. In one way, I opened myself up to new deals. And in another way, I closed myself off because I was so overwhelmed. And I'm still experiencing the cons of that situation. Also, at the same time, I'm also looking to house hack in Austin. So like 4 markets, and I just moved to Austin, Texas. So like all 4 of those things were making it very overwhelming for me. And so had I gone back in time, I would say stick to one of those markets. Even if the deal does look really good, don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, I would second that. So I own in 4 states, and in some of the states, I own in multiple markets in that state. And so now that I'm doing medium-term rentals, I've really learned the value of going deep in one market because you want to be known as the housing provider in that area. And so it's more important to say, I have 5 units in this area that I can offer to you. And so even though you're diversified, I think it complicates a lot of things with your team, with your taxes. So I don't recommend it. And I think as I start to sell properties and switch properties around, I will kind of put them all in one little huddle to figure out what that is, though.
And I think that like diversification, there is something to that. Because like if a market does totally go away, or there's a flood, or there's a fire or something, like you don't want to be like all concentrated in one market as you grow. But I think like 2 markets is probably good, maybe 3, but having like 1 here, 1 there, and you should get like 5 in one market, and then you can, okay, like I've got enough in this market. Now you go to the next market and get 5 there and kind of systematically grow that way. That would be kind of my recommendation.
Yeah, one market at a time with your main focus, and like the other one's on maintenance mode. And so that's where I'm kind of at right now. I'm just like, all right, I got to put this stuff to the side. Because right now I'm also I'm doing a series about buying an Airbnb in Italy. I shot myself in both feet at this point in time, trying to buy a property in another country. And so knowing that, I said, okay, I can't do any of these other markets now. I just need to focus on this one.
So, Antonio, one thing you're kind of alluding to is that you make a lot of YouTube videos. I know you're a content creator, you're an influencer. And so when did that kind of get started, and how does your real estate investing relate to that? And like, are you investing sometimes in real estate for the content? Like, how does that kind of go hand in hand with each other?
Yeah, I was having this discussion with a few other real estate investor content creators, and like, I think I started as a investor first and a content creator second, and it's kind of flipped to a content creator first and investor second. Like my investing in the last year and a half has taken a back seat to the content. And the specific scenario of me buying property in Akron and Little Rock was kind of a joint thing, right? Like I wanted to do this series, but I also wanted to invest in myself. So it was a win-win. But this, and in this scenario too, the Airbnb one in Italy, it feels like a win-win. I want a place in Italy. I'm getting my citizenship, and so like I want a place there to go visit every now and then. But I also know that would be a killer series because how many people want an Airbnb in Italy? Or at least that's my thought process. We'll find out in my LB for nothing. But in my head, it feels like that they're win-wins. Now, would I be as interested in dropping all of my investing efforts and putting it towards an Airbnb in Italy had I not had content? My answer would probably be no. I'd probably focus on the markets that I have right now and then build towards something in Italy. But this feels like a cool and exciting thing that allows me to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
For sure.
Great. So we need to transition into the second half of our show. But before we do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners?
Final words of wisdom. Yeah, I'd say don't do what I did. Don't split yourself too thin. Make yourself focused on one market, focused on one investing strategy, whether that be house hacking, rentals, Airbnb, short-term, fix and flip, wholesaling. And once you've done that, not just once, but multiple times over and over and over again, and you get to the point where you're bored with it, then I would say switch to something else.
Nice.
Love it.
All right, Craig, it's that time
For the Final Four.
The final four.
Z, kick us
All right.
off.
We're going to ask you 4 questions that we ask everyone. Antonio, what are you reading right now?
I am reading the E-Myth. I just started it. E-Myth for real estate investors. Because I'm trying to
I've
figure
read
out
the
how to
E-Myth,
systematize
but
my business.
Nice. Not for real estate investors. I might look that up.
I didn't know it existed, but apparently they've created it in like a lot of different businesses. So my friend sent it to me.
I'm going to take a look at that one too. Antonio, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't worry about like property cash flow if you can't worry about your own personal cash flow. If you can't focus on making enough income to cover your expenses, then how the hell are you going to make a property make money for you? A lot of people I get that I come in contact with at least seem to want to buy a property given their current scenario. And I'm like, you can, but it's probably best for you to focus on what you have and find a way to optimize that before you add this new thing in of buying properties and trying to figure out how that works. It's the same principles.
Makes sense.
Love it.
Yeah. Question number 3. What is your why?
My why is 2 things. It's one, it's my family. My parents came from Italy. My dad has arthritis in every joint in his body at this point, and he's still a contractor. So my first why is retiring my dad and my mom for all the sacrifice they've done for me and my family. And then second, it's to help the investor who was like me, who felt alone, who didn't have other friends and other people in their life that were investors and wanted to learn how to actually do this thing, how to actually get started. And so I'm hoping to help them and help people realize that real estate investing can take your family from not much wealth to a lot of wealth in, a 5, 10, 15-year time frame.
All right. Well, I'd say if you had to do it all over again, what is like one thing that you would do a little differently in your journey?
I would realize that the money is available if you're like really, really, really looking for it, and don't let the money be the reason why you don't start.
Yeah. I think that's powerful.
Okay, I was going to ask you an awesome last question too, but it looks like
You can ask it. Let him ask it. Let's just see if it's better than your other answer.
Let me ask it. I didn't have an answer for hers, though,
I was going to...
If it's the same one.
What was hers?
The dad joke one.
Okay. Mine is, why do you think all Italian names end in a vowel?
What? Why do all Italian names end in a vowel? Because that's how the language was constructed. I have no... Ask Dante Alighieri. He's the one that came up with the language. I have no idea.
But his name also ends in a vowel, so like...
He can't be trusted.
He's biased.
Just...
Maybe they looked around and was like, we got pizza, we got pasta. Everything we say has an A or an O at the end of it. I guess we just have to keep it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. So you got 2 hard questions from me and Z.
All right, Antonio, where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you could find me on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all under InvestStarters, INVESTARTERS. And I help beginner real estate investors who don't know where to start buy their first rental.
I love it. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah. See ya.
And that was Antonio Cucciniello. I just love saying his last name. Z, what'd you think of Antonio?
Antonio's great. We both met him at FinCon 2 years ago, which is a really fun conference if you guys haven't been out there. And he is actually really big in the education space. He does a lot of content creation for TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. So definitely go out and check out his stuff. Just lots of really good stuff to learn. But I thought it was a good story. I think it is really interesting when you can learn how to run numbers. You really can just kind of put that like overlay on any market. Like, it is really interesting how you can just pull up numbers from the internet and then run numbers in your spreadsheet, and you can find deals all over. And so I like that he was showing people that, even though I don't know if it's the best strategy. It's great for people to know, like, hey, you don't really have an excuse. You can go out there. There are deals and they are waiting to be bought.
Yeah, I truly do believe that there are deals in every market. You just need to figure out how to make them work. And some of the more expensive ones, you've got to be a little bit more creative with the medium-term rental or the short-term rental and all that good stuff. And you can still get great cash flow and great appreciation. That's what you get in those markets. Antonio's strategy was to go for the lesser expensive markets. He still gets good cash flow, probably doesn't get the same type of appreciation you might get in like a Denver or a Seattle or something like that. But he's still getting some appreciation, which is still wonderful. And so, yeah, and Antonio, he produces some great content as well. If you haven't already, check him out. It's Invest Starters. One of my favorite TikToks he ever did is there's like this trend where, when someone says like, oh, like, enjoy your new house. And then you just automatically say, you too, just because you're being cordial and nice, but obviously it doesn't apply to them. And then he like went into this whole video as if they were coming to live with him in his new house, and they were like taking a bath together is what they were doing. But I don't know. It was just a really funny video, so you should go find that and check it out.
Okay. We'll get right on that, Craig. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, E. Anything else you want to say about Antonio before we head out?
I think the last thing I will say is that if you haven't joined our Facebook group, it's called Airbnb Investing, that's a great place to have a community in real estate. I feel like that was a big theme for his journey, is that he didn't have a community, and so he created one. But nowadays, there are so many ways that you can get out there, go to meetups in person, do meetups online. Definitely do not let yourself be alone, because it's so much easier when you've got other people that are actually out there investing in real estate to talk to.
Love that. Yep, definitely join the Facebook groups, join the meetups, and find your tribe of real estate investors in your area. It will truly skyrocket your business. And if you haven't already, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes. That helps the show get out to as many people as possible. And when you do leave that review, make sure you let us know on Instagram. We love to interact with everybody. And if you've got any questions, always feel free to hit us up. I'm at the Fi Guy, and Zeona is
Zeona McIntyre.
And we will see you all next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.